Okay, everybody, thanks for being on today. This is my, as I said earlier, my new office, Gate A3 at Delta. I just came back from my dad's 90th birthday party for the family in Jacksonville. So it is completely empty here. I'm the only one here at A3. But we've got a great opportunity today. Thanks for being on. We've got Missy. She's got three names now, Henderson Houston. We're going to talk about a subject that I think is actually changing a lot right now, and other sources for you to find business. Okay, you've got your expireds, your for sale by owners, but I think as the market is changing and you're seeing things happening in sales. I was just in the one of these little shops here, and they had the owner of a Coldwell Banker on talking about the market and the change. None of the numbers really make sense. You had the low numbers here last month. Now things are picking up just a little bit, but still the numbers don't make sense. So I really believe what Missy's going to talk about is going to be helpful for you in what you need to do in real estate. So Missy Henderson Houston is here talking to us about the auction business and how you could actually make some money and actually handle some of these listings through this process. So Missy, welcome aboard to Mastery session here, Agent Mastery. So if you don't mind, tell us a little bit about your background so that we understand where you came from. And we're going to talk a lot about auctions. So give us your background.
Okay. Well, thanks for having me, Bill. Can y'all hear me okay?
Yeah. You sound great. Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, my ex-husband and I started an auction company back in 2008, which was actually not a great time to get into the business, as we all know,
Right.
that the height of the crash. And I apologize if y'all hear this. There's somebody mowing outside, so if y'all hear some mowers. But it was actually, because it was 2008, it kind of correlates to the time period that we're in now. A very disruption of the market, very much uncertainty, didn't know what was going to happen in the real estate market at the time. But it was actually a great time for auctions. And we approached Keller Williams at the time, and I had just became an agent, and I actually hopped in immediately into pursuing getting my auctioneer's license, which is quite a process. It's a 2-year process here in Tennessee where you have to apprentice under someone for a 2-year period of time and then become an actual auctioneer and go to 2 sets of classes. But we approached Keller Williams at the time, and Keller Williams hadn't had an auction company working with them, and it was really unknown at that period of time of auctioneers and agents working together. And David and I had the idea of, why not? Why aren't agents and auctioneers working together, and why aren't auctioneers looking at real estate agents as a source of them being our clients as much as the regular consumer is? And so we went about going to Keller Williams, and they were new to the Knoxville area at the time, and said, how about opening up an auction company? And they thought it was a great idea. And we started educating agents on how they could work with us. And we were agents. And so we knew what agents were looking for and how we could help them and how we could become just another tool in their tool belt to help them with their clients. And so that's
make money.
And make money, because that's the ultimate goal, and help them through that 2008, 2009, 2010 period of time, and and really to succeed and just offer their clients something different.
So now we're back into another market, not exactly like that, but similar to the fact that there's a disruption economically with the real estate business. So explain to them the process of an auction, and then how an agent works with someone like you in that auction, because they're concerned about money. Obviously, do I make my commission? But kind of walk us through how that works.
Well, the number one thing you're looking for with a client is if they have motivation and equity. Those two words are really the pinnacle of what you're looking for. And we're really coming into a time period like we were back then where those two words are important, especially in the commercial side of real estate. As I live part-time here in Knoxville, part-time in Nashville, and Nashville is one of the hardest hit places in the country right now as far as economically on the commercial side of real estate, or it's going to be, and because everything's been canceled, and our visitors, you know, our economy was on visitors and tourism coming to our city. So motivation and equity and people needing and wanting to sell quickly is what you're looking for when you're talking to clients.
So if I have a listing, so, you know, we know about motivation and equity. So a house has that, but what makes it a candidate for an auction? And do I, you know, if I pass it on, am I making the money? Because I think what's opening up, I believe, is as you look at fourth quarter, you're going to see commercial buildings, you're going to see residential, higher end residential properties that are going to have to sell because of a downturn in some industry. So we can offer this as an option, right, to a seller.
Absolutely. Well, first off, let me explain. There are three types of auctions. There's an absolute auction, which you're selling without a reserve price, which means you're just letting it go for whatever. There is a reserve auction where the seller has the right to refuse any or accept any and all bids. And then there is an online auction. And then all the time we are using the online option with the reserve and the absolute auction. It's kind of a tongue twister, but what we do is we start the auction process off with advertising and start using the bidding at the beginning, using online bidding. And then you're really starting the auction process usually about 3 weeks prior to the end date, whether that is a live auction or you're just finishing it off as an online. Does that make sense, Bill?
Yeah. And you know what? I had a client that I talked to who wanted to sell and was considering this years ago. And then I had a person just call me and said that the owner on a particular situation on an auction, because you're starting at a point to drive traffic to put a bid in, right? But the bid never went high enough that the seller was happy with. But then again, it could be that that's the price that it's going to sell for. So you've got a couple of things working here. You've got to convince a seller that this may not be like what, you know, you're not going to get millions because the market may not be dictating it, but it could drive the price up, couldn't it? In this frenzy.
Absolutely. And always an absolute auction is the best way to go. Because the whole thing with an auction is you're creating that urgency and getting the bidders to believe they're coming to an auction to get a deal. So you're driving the marketing up with that urgency that say that property is going to sell on that day. And unless I'm there to purchase that property that day and I'm bidding and I'm in that bidding war, then I'm going to lose out because it's going to sell that day. And that word absolute really sets the standard on that. So, but again, we start the online process and the bidding when we start the marketing. So that might happen 3 weeks prior or 4 weeks prior whenever we start the marketing. So we'll start by showing the property, and each person that comes in always asks the question, is this an absolute or reserve auction? So we always say, well, it's an absolute. And then the second question they always ask is, what do you think it's going to go for? So we say, well, what would you give today for it? And if you could buy it today, because we can always sell it before the auction, what would you give it for it? And we'll take it to the sellers and see if they'll accept your bid. Well, they might come up with a number. Say the home might be worth $250,000. So they say they come up with $100,000. And we say, okay, well, we'll take it to the seller and see if they'll take that. Then the seller says, no, I really want to keep going on it. So we go back to the bidder and say, well, they wouldn't take $100,000 for it, but do you mind? Let's put it on the online bidding. And then if you're the highest bidder, then at the end of the auction, then it will be yours. And they say,
Can you
sure.
Stop it? Can you stop it, Missy?
What do you mean?
Could that guy, could he accept it at that moment in time, the owner, and stop the bidding to go, or stop the process early?
He could, but that's not really the point of it.
Yeah,
as a
right.
seller, you don't really want to do that.
You want to get as much as what you can.
Absolutely. And so we would put it online at $100,000. And then the next person that comes in would ask the same question. You know, is it an absolute
keeps going up
reserve? What do you think it's going to go for? We say, well, we've already got a bid of $100,000. You know, would you like to bid more? And they give you another, you know, well, maybe I'll go 100,000, 50. And
right.
Okay, can I put that online for you? And you start the auction process really 3 weeks, 4 weeks prior. And then the night before the absolute, you stop the bidding. So if it's, say, a $250,000 house, you might be at $200,000 online. So when you go to the live auction, you start the bidding out at $200,000. Does that make sense?
Okay, so yeah. So we have 3 weeks prior. We're almost building momentum up. Then we go to the live auction, and that price has gone, let's just say it's gone up in those 3 weeks, and then we're starting the live auction at that price.
Correct.
Which is really cool. And then it goes back up. Now, I'm an agent. I just gave you that. How do I get paid?
Okay. Well, we definitely work with agents, more on the sales side than on the buy side. It is a referral. An agent, an auctioneer side and an agent side, it's a completely different commission. So you have the real estate commission and the auction commission. So real estate agents aren't auctioneers. They're real estate agents. It's kind of like... Okay,
wait a minute. Before we don't want to give a definite amount, but there's a percentage, right? So we stay clean, so we don't get arrested and we get pulled away just right now. So, okay, so basically there's a percentage that's kind of the regular percentage that they would get in a normal transaction.
Yeah, it's usually a little more than they would get in a regular sales situation, or the same that they would get in a regular sales situation. But as I was explaining, they're not under the auction commission, so it can only be a referral because they can't perform as an auctioneer.
Got it. And then who pays for the marketing?
Okay, the seller actually this is the glorious thing about it. The seller only pays the marketing fee. And so we would come to the seller and say, here's how we're going to spend marketing. And the buyer pays the commissions. So we do a set commission onto the buyers, whatever the highest bid price is. And that's how we get paid. That's how the agent gets paid. And any other, anything else that's gotten charged comes out of that commission on the buy side. But so much because the marketing cost is so little. It's saying so my internet.
Go up to, you just came back. You're cool.
Okay. But let me get back to your original question about what makes a good auction. Mm-hmm. I've kind of started to explain what an auction is, and so that agents know what they would be looking for out there. So it would be clients with a large amount of equity in their property, mm-hmm. clients that need out of their property quickly. Looking for someone, you know, that's putting their parent in an assisted living or nursing home and needs to liquidate assets. People that are inheriting property or estates and want to sell. Banks with REOs or for pre-foreclosures. We did one sale one time with someone that was selling a church. You know, there's not a whole lot of banks out there that want to foreclose on churches. That's not a
good idea.
Fun thing to do for anyone. So we came in and worked a deal with the church and with the bank pre-foreclosure. This has to be before the foreclosure process even starts, but where the bank could come in, save the legal fees, hire the auction company, and we worked with a commercial agent that brought us this auction. And the bank then was our first bidder on the property.
That's interesting.
Yes, the church owed $900,000 to the bank. Mm-hmm. So we had the bank come in and bid $900,000 at the auction. And if it didn't go above that, then there was a break fee for the bank. But the bank would then take the property back. But luckily, it went a lot higher than that. It ended up selling for $1.2 million. And so the church walked away with that extra amount of money. Plus, we sold $40,000 worth of personal property out of the church. So it was a win-win for everybody. The bank went away with their money. The church went away, you know, with over, $300,000 to go and start another church with. And no one had to foreclose. So it was a win.
Explain a break fee. What's it? Oh, let me just say, wait, hold on a second, Missy. If anybody has any questions about this, please chat it on in, because there's probably all kinds of questions. But explain what a break fee is.
Well, we worked out with the bank because there's so much work in that the bank had to take back the property. There was probably about $20,000 worth of legal fees that they would have paid an attorney in a foreclosure process. So we worked out that there would be a certain amount of a fee paid to the auction company because, again, we get paid on the buy side by the buyers. So if the bank is the buyers, then we didn't want to charge them a huge buyer's premium. So we agreed on a break fee, a smaller break fee, where they were paying us less than they would pay the attorneys, but we were getting paid for our work.
So the buyer is really, if I want to buy the property, let's go from that side now. How does that work? So if I come in and I want to buy that property, I've got to show I've got the money. Correct.
Yes. So it's usually a 10% premium that you're putting down. So you're paying a premium of 10% on top of whatever you're paying. And you put 10% of that down the day of the auction. So, and that is a non-refundable deposit. So that is not earnest money. And if they choose not to close on the property, they do not get that back.
That's the beauty right there. That's the beauty of this process. The fact that these people, they're real buyers. They're not going to drop 10% down unless they have the money ready to do something. So this is a serious buyers coming in, and they're jeopardizing that 10% if they don't perform.
Right. So if you're looking at a property, say with that church, I mean, if you're buying a property that's 1.2 million and you're putting 10% down on that,
big money.
You're laying down some good money, and with auctions, there's no contingencies. So you're looking at no financing.
No
fees, no
inspections.
home inspections, nothing. I mean, they can come in and look at the property, but it's as is, where is, and the seller is.
Wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't that be great that we had that going on with the residential property? I mean, I know that buyer beware. I understand that, but I mean, just now pulling away from this and just looking at the agent. We go through a contract, we go through inspections, things could still fall out. All these things could still happen and never earn a commission. With an auction, different story, right?
Correct.
No inspections. They're going to buy. If they find something that they don't like, once they're there, it's theirs.
It's theirs. And it's a 30-day close. So
Wow.
Usually it's 30 days to market the property. Then we have the auction date, and then it's a 30-day close. So, when you're walking into an auction as an agent and you referred over to us, you're going to get paid in 60 days. The seller is going to get paid in 60 days. You've got very, very little chance of someone walking away from laying down $50,000 in a non-refundable deposit. So
I see this is going to be huge in the next 6, 9, 18, 24 months, that this whole auction process is going to be a necessity in some of these situations that are going to be occurring. Now, I want to pull just back for a second and talk about the fact that if I'm calling and I'm prospecting and I'm calling expires or FSBOs, or I land a commercial situation, the guy doesn't know, I just want to make sure that I don't talk above what I should say. So if I find a lead to someone, we could list it regularly. We could also do the auction. So I just want to make sure I say the right things. What do I need to be aware of saying to someone so that they would even want me to come to their house and explain it, and also don't say too much that I've ruined the process? So what should I be saying?
Well, people get a little nervous of an auction when you're talking to someone. So we like to call it an expedited sale. And that really kind of helps. I've got someone in my office or somebody that I can refer you to that does an expedited sale of real estate. Would you be interested in having that conversation? That usually works a little bit better than just bringing up the word auction sometimes. It seems to have a negative connotation. It's funny with properties under a certain amount of money. But when you look at the auction process in general, some of your highest worth items are sold at auction. All of your racehorses that are the most expensive are all auctioned. And a lot of your most expensive estate homes are auctioned off. You look at someone like Barrett Jackson, most of your high-end cars are auctioned, and there's no negative connotation. So why look at, I don't know why people have this negative view when it comes to homes and things that are of lesser value. So it's an interesting thought process.
And then you're selling not just the building, but everything in it too goes.
You can. We focus on mainly the residential, the real estate that's involved. We won't go in and just do a personal property auction unless it's something like we've auctioned off boats and RVs and cars and guns and coins and things that have a higher monetary value. But to just come in and liquidate someone's home without the real estate being involved, that's not something we really focus on.
I think that you just mentioned a couple of things. So I think I'm looking at several sales scenarios and how we work with an auction person. First of all, a unique property, as you said, motivated, has equity, and there was one other thing you added on there. You said that it's, where's my notes here? Living, okay, assisted living areas, things like that, but motivation, equity, It's a unique property, and so they want to liquidate things. So
Yeah,
one is if I have a divorce, yeah, those things, all that could be the property, or I have a house that I'm going to list and sell, but they have a bunch of stuff in it. I could still use you for that.
Yes, absolutely. And let me go over a couple of things that make a really good auction. And again, I'm sorry for the
yeah, I'm in an airport, so don't worry about it.
Mower out there. I apologize.
Yeah.
But someone with large land tracts, if you have some land that, say, is a 500-acre tract of land, or even a 100-acre tract of land, those actually work better at auction than they do listing them, for the most part, because auctioneers have the ability to go in and break those large land tracts up into smaller tracts and auction those off. Let me explain that a little bit. So we can have a surveyor come in and break those up for us and put those into tracts for auction use. And so say you've got a 100-acre tract, as long as they're over 5 acres and have road frontage access, then we can do best use of those tracts, and we can break those up and say we sell them in 10 tracts. Well, someone can afford a 10-acre tract more than they can afford a 100-acre tract or a 500-acre tract. So we get a lot more bidders, or a lot more interested parties that can afford the land than just being able to sign up. And then we can get the people that can afford or want the smaller tracts bidding against the person that wants the whole tract as a whole. And on auction day, we go back and forth and have those people bidding against each other. And it really runs the price of the land up. And that's really difficult for an agent to be able to do that. So it ends up bringing more money and more value to the real estate.
So that's interesting.
Yeah, so that works really, really well. But also, properties that have never been listed before are excellent auction properties because there's not a value on the property. So those are wonderful, especially if they're unusual properties. We had a home one time that was a gorgeous lake lot, and had a house that the entire downstairs was garages and the upstairs was the living quarters. And it was perfect for somebody to come in and build an estate home on the property and have this as kind of a guest house, or they could just use it as is. And but it had never been listed. So it went much higher than the appraised value at auction because people couldn't put a value on it and they didn't know what it was appraised for. So that works really well. If you are showing as an agent homes that you're even thinking, I mean, you go in to do a listing presentation on a home that you even think, man, this would be perfect for an auction. We would much rather talk to them before you list it, because once you list a property, you've put a number on it. So then when they go into the auction process and people start bidding, they think, well, this is what it was listed for. It didn't get this, so it's not worth that. Right. So you got that number out there. And as much as, you know, we all love Zillow, if the number's out there, you know. Right. And then also it works for agents that have a listing, they've got a number on it, and then they're like, okay, well, we're just going to reduce the price a couple of times and then auction it. Again, not a good thing to do because, again, you're reducing the price, you're showing the worth of the property, and then you're going to auction. That number's out there, and that doesn't make good for the auction process.
How long is the process, Missy? How long would like if I'm a short sale candidate Could this be an option?
No, no.
Okay.
We need someone, again, those two words, motivation and equity in the property. So
Okay,
we need to have that wiggle room on them.
well, I mean, well, yeah. So let's just think about it. If someone has a financial issue, which I think some people are going to have later on in fourth quarter, a financial issue, they've got to sell, they've lost a cash flow coming in, but they want to make as much as they can. They have equity, but they just have a real bad situation financially. This could be the answer. They're highly motivated. They got equity. Even the people that are now leaving high density locations to move out to the country where you live, kind of, you know, to get out of you know, I just talked to someone that's moving out of a high dense place and wanted to go out to the country, but has a lot of equity. This could be not a bad, you know, bad possibility for them to sell at auction.
Yeah.
That'll work. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
So what are the mistakes that the agents could be making besides putting the wrong property on the market or telling them something? Because you know, I just want to make sure that, I think what you're saying here is that don't stick your neck out too far and explain too much of it. Hand it over to a pro like you.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I think to know what to look for. I mean, again, getting into estates, estates are very difficult to work with when you're dealing with attorneys and when you're dealing with divorce situations. We've been to court with divorces. When you're negotiating, mediating those situations, it's difficult. If you've never been in that situation, it's difficult. And as auctioneers, we deal with it every day. We're very, very versed in working with attorneys. That's what we do a lot. So those are situations that we're good at, and it's easier for us to deal with sometimes than it is for agents to deal with. Pre-foreclosures, again, the large land tracts work so much more, you know, so much better at auction. Commercial is a huge thing that most residential agents aren't used to working with. And this is a way that you don't have to do a commercial referral. And because you do a commercial referral and it could be on the market for a year, 2 years, and you get a couple of LOIs on the commercial property, and they do come in and they do their due diligence, and then the deal falls through. Where here, an agent could, again, if the property has motivation and equity, could refer us the commercial property. We come in, auction the property off in 60 days, and the agent gets paid, the seller gets paid on the commercial property, everybody walks away happy. Churches, industrial property, farmland, you know, farms are awesome because we can come in, again, maybe break the land up. We could sell the farm equipment, heavy machinery. That's really hard to do. Yeah, horse farms. It's, you know, those things are more difficult for agents to deal with, and auctioneers are more versed in those situations.
All right, so now I'm an agent who has this lead. What's a good auctioneer or an auction house? I mean, what am I looking for in a market to find that right person to work with?
Well, you know, like agents and like attorneys or anything, there's good and there's bad. So, you know, I would love for you to call me. We can work in pretty much any state. We predominantly work in the South. Anywhere in the Southeast, but we would love to work with you. If not, you can call me and I can get you an auction referral somewhere in the country. But there are really good auction companies out there. There's some that aren't. You also, each state has its own licensing that's different in each state, kind of like it is for real estate agents. So in Tennessee and throughout the South, it's very, very strict to be an auctioneer. In some of the other states, it's not. So you have to just be careful.
Right.
But look for somebody that's been in the business for a long time, that really has a good reputation, and that, you know, you can reach out and get referrals from people that have actually done auctions with them.
So, because I'm thinking this could actually be, if you find a good auctioneer like yourself, person has this business, that between calling expireds for sale by owners, you open your market to commercial property. Now you have a source. I mean, listen, I tell you, commercial properties, in my opinion, for the audience that's listening, you're going to see a lot of these things having to come on the market. Absolutely. They're going to be coming on the market. And you do not want to handle commercial property if you've ever done commercial property. There's a whole, it's another language, and some of you have done it. Like commercial, small buildings, things like that, not as bad. But when you're dealing with some big stuff, you need the experts. And it does take a long time to get paid. But as we get into this new market and these businesses are going out, or retail is starting to shut down in some little these strip malls, you know, don't overlook that. Find the information and then hook up with someone like this, I think would be ideal. I mean, we're talking some decent commissions here. We're not talking about a little bit of money here on some of these bigger projects. I mean, you do have some small ones. I had someone call in that is using espresso. They made some calls. Watch this, you'll love this. So he's making some calls, just new to espresso agent. He lands a listing that expired and asked the guy, you know, his house is still selling. Well, we have it now sold, but I have other properties. How many do you have? He has 70. He's 90 some years old with 70 properties that he's bought over the years. That's amazing. Now, could that be a good candidate? That's absolutely a great candidate. As you're drooling, I can see you're drooling. But you know, you're going, I mean, that would be ideal. But absolutely. You're not going to know this unless you make the calls. And I think what people are, you could be proactive on this. Excuse me, back there. So anyway, so tell me let's say scripts that we should be using on something like this. I just wanted to get to the words that I'm calling for sell by owners. I'm calling expireds. I'm calling for rent by owners, where there are investors that own for, you know, these rental properties that say, listen, it hasn't sold. I'm going to rent it out, whatever. This could be a great candidate. So give me some ideas of what to say to them. Now I'm putting you on the spot a little bit. You are. You're more the expert in this than I am. Well, yeah. Well, I want to make sure that I don't say anything that, because I think that what's happening is we start seeing money and then we start gravitating to this thing. Like real estate people are moving to the flavors. Stay with what makes sense and then expand into this area if you have a market that has it. But do I say to them, hey, Mr. Seller, you know, we also have an option called, should I use expedited selling? Yeah. And again, okay. You know, getting back to the whole reason why we started this to begin with is we wanted to give the agents another tool in their tool belt. And you should never have an expired listing. If it has motivation and equity, you have this option and there's no reason for you to have an expired listing. So, you know, you need to be calling these people because I guarantee the iBuyers are. And so, you know, you want to be out there and you want to be, you know, saying to them, hey, you know, we can do this quick expedited sale for you and you can have your money in 60 days without having to pay a real estate agent and with only having to pay a small marketing fee. And we could have your money and you can move on and be at your next dream home. You know, be where you want to be in 60 days. And, you know, it's all about finding out where their passion is, where they want to be, what their next step in their life is, and you being able to give them something to get them there. And this is a process that is able to do that for you. Yeah, having that other tool, you just kind of went through that. The iBuyer situation is going to be huge. That's going to be running against a real estate agent in the next 3-6 months to God knows how long. But it's coming in strong. There's many of these companies that have gotten all these joint ventures or these investors that come in and put millions of dollars together to buy these properties up, get rid of them at 10, 15% below or 20% below retail, put it back on the market and sell and just buy these things up. you could actually have a way of showing them that they could put it on the market if they have them, the two things that you said, motivation and equity, to actually make more than even retail at times. I mean, you can't promise that, but we're talking about a psychological process that makes someone want to bid it up. That's what this auction, which is a really good arena for, is that that frenzied feeling. I want it, and I want no one to beat me out of it.
Yeah.
And that starts to bring the price up. Who does a calling on this? I mean, how does that work? I mean, so you go to the house. So this thing goes to that day, the day of the auction. What happens?
Well, we've done our job right. So there is very much a marketing schedule that we've put together, and we've been marketing the property for a solid 3 to 4 weeks. And our marketing is because the seller has paid our marketing fees, and it could be anywhere from $3,500 up to $30,000 in marketing cost. So that is something that an agent normally cannot spend on marketing. And because the seller is not spending money on an agent commission, and this is their only cost, and now, of course, it depends on how much the property is selling for, we use those costs specifically for marketing. We lay out everything. So my thought process is we want to make sure that the community can touch, feel, see, hear everything about this property, and they know that this is an event. And that's what we make the sale of the home or the property is an event. And we want it out there, and we want everybody that is interested, can afford it, every bidder there. And whether it's newspaper, radio, things that agents normally don't do for one piece of property. So we've put that out there. We've marketed, and we've gotten as many bidders there as we can possibly get, and get them in a frenzy to bid against each other, and want to make sure that I get it and that guy over there doesn't. So.
And then Missy, you're up on stage with a microphone, and I'm just kidding because I know you don't do that. So tell me, so someone does stand up and does the same thing they do at Barrett when they're doing the cars.
Uh-huh.
And could someone also be online? I mean, be on the phone. They don't have to physically be there. There could be a representative, right? Could a real estate agent represent the buyer there and bid for the buyer?
That's not preferable.
Okay.
Yeah, we want to make sure that the bidder is engaged
right.
in the process. So
got it.
Yeah.
Unless it's a unique property.
They can be online, on the phone, engaged in the process. But we want to make sure that they're there. And depending on the price of the property, the bidder might have to put something down before they can do that, so that we know
before they bid it. Before they bid.
Before they're bidding like online or over the phone. Yeah.
What's the biggest attendance you ever had on an auction? Just curious.
We've had 150 people at an auction.
Wow.
Yeah, you can get a lot of people to attend an auction, but you only really need 2.
Yeah.
You just need 2.
2 with money.
2 that really want it. That's what you're hoping for, So
well, this is great. I love all the information, and I really I know this is a new subject for some of you. I know that, and sometimes, and I know with agents they've tried this, and this is, as Missy said earlier on, that this is another economic situation, that this is another tool that you can use in your toolbox. So I would, if you're in that type of market and you're around a lot of commercial or land, this is a situation that I think you need to look into as another tool. So how do they get a hold of Missy with questions, and how do they do this?
Well, I don't know if you have a slide or anything on my phone number. But they can contact me by Missy Henderson Homes.
Yeah, maybe Alex should type it in. So what is it?
Missy Henderson Homes, HOMES, @gmail.com. or I can be reached at 615-924-5458.
This is good. All right. So, so this is great news. Missy, thanks so much. Good stuff. And I think it's going to be something that we're going to see a lot more. And I think this whole thing of it being this, I don't know, auction had this little, people thought it was something that was minimizing the value of a home. But I love what you said. And this is the first time I've talked to you before. It's the first time I heard that word that you said, that expedited sale.
Yeah, and let me just reiterate something, Bill, that of why an auction. It's a quick expedited sale, usually with 60 days. You get market value price without waiting. The seller only pays the marketing budget. The buyer pays the commissions. You have an exact date of sale and closing date. It's as is, where is, no contingencies on anything. And the agents make a great referral fee. So, and
this is heaven. This is heaven.
And guys, this is a way to combat those iBuyers out there. When someone's coming in and taking those properties away from you, this is your tool to combat that with. So
yeah, let me just make sure there isn't any other questions here. Great, we've got all that information on chat. Thank you, Alex, for doing that. And Missy, thank you. We'll be in touch, and I appreciate everybody being on today. And for those of you that have any questions, or if you have questions for me, you can reach me at billc@espressoagent.com. I'm getting really good at remembering it because I always forget, but I'm getting better. So guys, have a great day. Talk to you soon. See ya.